You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What episode is this?
5.
5. Okay. All right, we made it to episode 5 of Fridays with Farissa, and more than 2 people have watched all the videos, so thank you. I appreciate you guys giving a shit, and also for the really amazing response that I've had on the episode around my daughter and our family just realizing how early racism and inequality actually hits Black and brown families. I didn't know how people would receive that, but since it was my truth, I didn't really care. So I appreciate it. So anyway, this episode, I'm digging back into my book, you guys. And some of you are like, oh, you have a book? Yes, I have a book. I wrote it and self-published 3 years ago. It was sort of like a little side project of mine, really something that I pushed myself to do for no other reason besides I love to write. I'm a creator, and if I'm not constantly creating things, I'm bored. So the idea came to me to tell my story from my 20s, dating, getting my first real job, moving back to New York as a young adult, and like just figuring out life in that space. And the reason why this has resurfaced for me is because I am in talks right now with a publishing company to actually republish the book professionally in that grassroots, like in your basement type situation like I did, and actually market it to the world and see what people think. When I say it out loud, it's actually really scary because the legitimately 50 people or so who bought a book from me were either friends or friends of friends, so there wasn't that much anxiety around what are people going to think, but then you really open yourself up and just put it out there, and who knows. But again, it's my truth, so I'm really not that concerned as a creative person. But anyway, in the phase that I'm in, again with this book, I know I'm going to have to reread it a million times. I'm going to do some amazing edits and like just really kind of bring it into the voice of Farissa, the author, writer, creator today. I was just reminded of some really amazing parts of my story that either were a joy for me to write or just one of my favorite parts of the book. So I thought, what more fun than to read them out loud to you guys, like reading Rainbow old school style, and just be like, here are some of my most favorite parts of my book. So I picked 3 separate sections that I'm gonna read, and if the mood strikes me, comment on. So I think I know the most favorite part of this book for me to write, weirdly as it sounds, was the first time me and my now husband actually made love. First of all, because it's such an important part of a relationship, but secondly, because I am now married to him and he is the most private person on the planet, which is crazy because he's married to me and I'm doing this kind of stuff. But because I knew that and I wanted it to be reflective of real life but also respectful of my relationship, I put so much time, energy, and effort into choosing my words but still having the reader feel the experience of what it feels like to have your last first time. So this is my last first time. Just to give you guys some preface where we are in the book. It's like page 52. I don't even know what chapter this is. I haven't memorized all that because it's my real life. But chapter 2. So we have decided to meet each other for the weekend in DC, where we're at right now. And it's our first time. We haven't done anything. And we're both sort of like, is it gonna happen? Is it not gonna happen? In my mind, I was like, it's happening. So we're just off like a pitcher of beer. It's like a hot August night in DC. We're chilling, watching a band play, had some beer, going back to our hotel, and the guy at the front desk refers to me as Mrs. Knox, which is hilarious because that's actually my name now. And back then it was not, and that was the furthest thing from my mind. But here we are entering back in our hotel. And so in the book, my husband's name is James because it sounds nice. So James and I both ignored it and smiled at him as not to be rude. Once in the room, we sat on the bed and both had a real exhale to commemorate the day we just lived. The tension was heavy, even though on the surface we were just taking our shoes off, turning on music and getting comfortable. Underneath our skin, there was a chemical energy building. I was leaning into it, willing to let it cover me like a blanket on a chilly night, but he was doing everything in his power to prevent himself from falling prey to it. This was now familiar territory. All of our long-distance phone conversations would get to this point, flirty and enticing, but ultimately safe. Now with nothing but a couple of inches between us, there was nothing stopping us from exploring what we could find out. Not wanting to be the one to initiate the game, because I'm a lady, I got up to put on my pajamas. I had decided that if he was going to pretend he didn't want to kiss me, I was going to show him what he was missing. I dimmed the lights and unzipped my overnight bag. I pulled out the clothes I was going to change into while James sat on the edge of the bed watching me in silent awe. He knew from our conversation the night before that I was contemplating not wearing anything under my clothes just to make things interesting. I turned my back to him and slid the silk cami I had on over my head and dropped it. Before I hit the floor, James was standing in front of me with his hands on his arms, pulling me into his space. Our first kiss was exactly what a girl hopes her last first kiss is like. We kissed for a few moments before I felt his fingers on the strings of my linen pants. As those came undone and fell to the floor, my feet left the floor. He laid me on the bed with ease and never took his eyes off of me while he undressed and made his way to me. We made love. I mean, who wrote this? But literally, that's literally how it happened. And, you know, there's more to the story. But that's like, for me, like a really cool way to describe my last first time. Another really, well, so I have to give Caitlin, my assistant, some credit on this because I don't know, well, I'm a marketer at heart, right? No, in real life, I'm a marketer. I don't pretend to know what people will find interesting about me, because it's me. Like, I'm not gonna be like, this is what people like, this is what people find interesting. I refer to others to tell me what is interesting about me instead of me trying to, you know, portray something and act like I know what people like and what they don't like, especially as something as serious as my own personality. So I checked in with her to see, like, what are the things that people care about relationship-wise, right? Like, what are the things that girls are like, okay, tell me everything. Obviously, like, how is he in bed, right? Can't get into that. But other things is like, okay, how serious is it, right? Like when you are with a girlfriend and she's dating somebody and they've been together for a long time, you kind of want to get the feel of how serious is it, where is it going? So every relationship at some point has that conversation, and sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But for me and my husband, it was an interesting conversation. So inevitably, during the course of me and my husband dating, I think because he was so not into marriage anymore, not into like solidifying anything specific, when he felt himself, I think, feeling too much for me, he would pull back and we would get into an argument, or he would start asking me questions like, why do you want to be with me, you know? And it would turn into an argument or would turn into an uncomfortable situation over dinner. And I was honestly like just tired of having that back and forth conversation. In the book, I refer to him as my Mr. Big because he really, I was like Carrie and he was like big. And just constantly running in the opposite direction from me, even though he wanted to be with me. It was the weirdest thing. Now it makes all the sense in the world. We'll be married 9 years next week. So anyway, this night that we get into our awkward conversation on where our relationship is going, it goes like this. So one night at dinner, I'm much older than I was before. Okay. One night at dinner, it was just too much to take and I'd had enough. I was not going to let him do this to me. It started like all the other conversations. Why do you love me? He asked me. Are you serious? I'd reply. I'd made dinner at his house and we just put the food on the table. Why are you doing this to me right now? I asked him. I was not ready for another round of this. I'm not doing anything to you. I just want to know, was his response. Fine. I love you because you're an amazing person. You make me laugh. We have so much fun together doing stupid shit like looking out of the window or sitting on a park bench overlooking the promenade. Why do you love me? I turned it back on him. He goes, you're the one who's amazing, he said without a thought. You take such great care of me and we're wonderful together, he added. I cut him off. So what's the problem, I asked, I'm sure with an eyebrow in the air. You start to freak out on me about every 3 months and I think you don't like the feelings that you're having for me, I told him. At this point, I had nothing to lose. We were either gonna have this out or have this be the last time we had this conversation, or it was gonna be our last conversation. I was serious. I didn't want to be in this same place 5 years from now, and I could tell this was the direction that we were headed for. This is not it at all, he answered. I love you. You want to get married, I can tell, he said really in a questioning tone. I hated that comment for so many reasons. He had no idea. I had dated the same guy for 7 years before him, and we had just been at the stage of talking about when we would get engaged towards the end of our relationship. I had been with James for a year. Who in their right mind starts talking about marriage after dating for a year? Oh yeah, James and his ex-wife. I went for honesty without hurtfulness. Yes, I want to get married, I said, one day, not today, not tomorrow, not even next year or in the next few years. I don't even know if I want to marry you. That, side note, ladies, is honestly the reason why I think I'm married to this man today. Because it was true. I wanted to get married, but I didn't even know if he was the person that I wanted to get married to. So anyway, I don't even know if I want to get married to you. Just like I don't need you to know if you want to marry me right now. What I do need you to know is if marriage itself is not completely out of your future, if you meet the right woman who makes you happy and you want to spend the rest of your life with her, whether that person is with me or not. So basically I'm telling him, like, I just need to know that if you think that you meet the right person one day, would you consider marriage with that person? I don't need you to tell me if I'm that person or if you want to marry me. So I told him all that, wanting to yell but maintaining my calm as my chicken probably got cold. This was something I had said to him many times before. This was never going to end. I could feel the tears coming from the back of my throat. You'll have to read the rest of the book to see what happens after that. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes babies in the baby carriage. We've done all of that, but before we even got to that point, there were things that we had to learn about each other. After I told him, hey, I love you, I want to be with you, I want to get married one day, I just don't know if it's you. We had a few more of those conversations, and ultimately we actually broke up. I don't remember how long we were broken up for. I remember it feeling like a really serious breakup. I remember walking down the street, it's funny today, but I remember walking down the street talking to my mom on the phone, like about to go get my hair done in Brooklyn, and I'm like crying like a crazy person walking down the street talking to my mom on the phone because she was the only one that I felt like I can explain this to her and she wouldn't judge me, even if it all worked out in the end. Like, that one friend who's like, I'm gonna hate him no matter if you're back with him or not. My mom was the safe one who's like, how do we feel about him today? That's how I feel about him. And she's still like that, honestly, which is great to have, whether in your mom or another friend. But in this passage I'm about to read, we had broken up. He was just like completely scared, honestly. Like today I know the reason. He was just scared shitless of what it meant for how he felt about me, and knowing or thinking he knew what he didn't want. He decided to run in the opposite direction, but then still would want to be friends and like want to hang out on Saturdays and like go to the movies and do stuff. I'm like, no, bro, you don't get to have all of that and then we're not together. That doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to spend quality time with people that I can see a future with. And if you're saying our definition of the future is different, then there is no us. And as hard as that was to actually stand in that reality, I decided I had to, because I had just spent 7 years, even though it was like from high school to college, it was still time, real time with one person. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to waste time with someone and we didn't see eye to eye on things. So fast forward, let's say a week or two goes by, we're officially not together, and he reaches out to me to have dinner and want to talk. And I'm like, oh, okay, well that's a good sign. It definitely felt more than just friendly. So I was okay with that, hoping that we would have our, last real conversation about our relationship and as it pertains to our future and get on the same page. The night that we were supposed to do this, I don't know what was going on in his head, but he also heard about some folks from work going to a restaurant and decided to add us on to their reservation without explaining any of this to me. Talking in the car on the way there, nothing. It was a complete shock and surprise for me when I got to the restaurant that we were not eating dinner by ourselves, and that this was actually a semi-work situation with a group at the investment bank that he worked for that he was hoping to get included in. So I act like fucking Michelle Obama through that entire dinner, prove that I am First Lady material, and then let him have it in the car after dinner. And this is me going in on my future husband for the first time for real, like really going in on him. So he decides to ask me, are you coming home with me? I gave him a look that must have chilled him to his bones, because all he could say was, what's wrong? What's wrong? I repeated incredulously. Get in the car and I will tell you. The driver, 140 Willow, I commanded. That was James's house. I let him have it. Let me start out by informing you that I'm very upset, just so that there's no confusion. We just broke up this past weekend and I have felt nothing but utter sadness for the past few days. Then you call me and ask me to go to dinner. Excuse me for thinking that it would be just the two of us. You were the one who said you wanted to talk. Did you not think it was important to let me know that there would be 6 other people waiting for us at the restaurant, I asked? I did. He tried to talk, but there was no way he was taking the reins on this conversation right now. I cut him off before he could get another word out. No, you didn't. I asked you where we were going, and you told me someplace that people at work had told you about. Not that they would also be waiting for us. When did all this happen anyway? I spoke to you just hours before we met, and we were still on. Just the two of us. If plans had changed, then that was the time that you should have informed me, I continued, stopping to inhale. I'm sorry, he said. They saw me right before you arrived and told me where they were going, and that I should come with them. I told them I was having dinner with my girlfriend and that we hadn't seen each other in a while, and they told me to bring you, he explained. Since when did you stop thinking for yourself? It is a simple thing to say no. Maybe next time, I said like a mother. But you know that I'm not happy with the group that I'm in, and I want to basically he wanted to move over to this other group. I had to use the opportunity to talk to them and have the team get to know me, he tried to justify. And that's the only reason why I didn't act the way that I actually felt in the restaurant tonight, I said. I wanted to crack your skull open. I know that this was important to you, but our relationship is important to me. And if this came up at the last minute, I would have understood and we would have said what we needed to say, and we can talk at home after dinner. All I'm asking for is the common courtesy of being informed of the situation I'm walking into. I feel like I'm just along for the ride with you sometimes. You make your decisions in your head and you don't tell anyone, and the rest of the world has to find out on your time. That's not how I operate, and it's not how I handle my relationships. We're on a team and we're supposed to act like one. We're on a team and we're supposed to act like one. If the job of the night is to make these people want to hire you, then that's the job. But I have to know, I kind of yelled. I was so mad I could feel my cheeks getting red and hot. We were almost at his house and I didn't even want to stay there. It was almost midnight and there was no way I was getting on a train as upset and drunk as I was. We walked upstairs and sat on the couch. The cigarette I lit felt like the best cigarette of my life. I took a deep breath in and held it in for a moment before I let the smoke escape my lungs and mouth. I was at a loss for words. I love you, Farissa, he said. There goes my name again. Side note, in the book earlier, I talk about how hearing my name come out of his mouth, even still today, is like one of the best sounds I can hear. So, and I am an ego, and I'm sorry that I didn't tell you, no, he said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you what was going on. I thought I told you in the cab where we were going and what was going on, but I was so excited that I spaced out. He started kissing me. I'm sorry, he said. Another kiss. I'm sorry, he said again. Another kiss. I'm sorry. Do you forgive me, he asked. 2 more kisses. Stop, I said. I'm so hurt right now, I can't even speak. We sat there in silence for what seemed like an eternity. His living room was dark and the only light we had to see each other was from the street lamps outside the window and the orange glow of our cigarettes as we inhaled. If you think that I want to live the rest of my life alone, you're wrong, he began. If you think that I want to grow old and watch my kids grow up by myself, I don't. I want someone to share the rest of my life with, and I love you. You make me feel like no one else has ever made me feel, and the thought of me hurting you tears me up. I don't want to do that. I can see myself with you forever. I just need time. Time to figure out what that means for me and what that means for us, he said after I could take no more silence. My face was a mess. The tears were coming faster than I could wipe them, and I could barely see. We have time, I said. We have all the time in the world to be with each other. I just don't want you to put rules on it like this will definitely not happen or that will definitely not happen. Let's just say that we'll play it by ear and let fate do what it does best, and whatever happens, happens, I said with tears running down my face in between sobs. I love you, he said, and whatever happens, happens. And just like that, we were back together. Aww. I'm just happy I could read that without actually crying. So that is like honestly the 3 best parts for me of this book. I'm really excited to see where professionals take it, because honestly this was me on a laptop with access to Amazon. So knowing that professional editors are going to read this, they're going to edit it, they're going to put a marketing plan together for me, they're going to put it in stores. It scares the shit out of me, but at the same time, it's really exciting. So I'm sure I'll find a fun way to document that journey. So hopefully you guys will follow along.